Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy, the dope ass dude, and I am so excited to be back with you guys on tonight and excited about everything that is going to happen here tonight. And I got to admit, I have like really missed doing the podcast and chatting with you guys every Monday night. But I am really excited about season 8 and everything that we have going to happen this season. And then most importantly, I'm just excited that you guys have decided to join me on this journey. So, of course, you already know the preliminary things. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, if you don't mind doing that now, go ahead and click on that subscribe button. And while you're there, click on notifications so that you can be notified each and every time a new podcast is uploaded to the site. And then you already know you can watch us live each Monday on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and YouTube. Again, that's Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and YouTube. And then if you don't get a chance to catch it on Monday, you can always listen on the go. So it's on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, and iHeart Radio. And then if you're not following me on Instagram and TikTok, go ahead and follow me on both of those platforms. You can find me at the Dope Ass Dude Podcast. So there's both TikTok and Instagram. You can follow me at the Dope Ass Dude Podcast. And then just a preliminary thing for Mark. If you want to go out and follow him, you can follow him on TikTok and Instagram at Mark.Coley. Again, on Instagram and TikTok, that's Mark, MARC Coley, Coley. And then Facebook, you can also follow him, Mark Coley, on Facebook. And then on YouTube, he is I Am Mark Coley on YouTube. So you can follow him on all of those platforms. And I tell you this here, when you go and follow him, you're not going to be disappointed because this guy posts some of the most inspiring stuff in 90 seconds. I don't know how he get that much power in 90 seconds, but he has mastered it. So make sure you go out and follow him. And then also, if you want to book Mark for your next gig, you having a conference or something coming up that you want to book him, you can also check him for booking. You can look at markcoley.com, or you can email info@markcoley.com. And of course, I'll put all of this up before we leave out on tonight. But I met Mark maybe about 8 years ago. And I didn't realize Mark was as young as he was until we was just talking now. Because at the time when I met Mark, Mark had just released a book and he was already creating his platform. He was in the military at that time and he was doing some pretty extraordinary things. He was his book deals with, I think it's Unleash Your Money. That's the title of the book, I believe so. And I have the book. I need to go in my closet and reread it. But he had just released the book and Mark was kicking butt. He was doing his thing already. So then, of course, we're connected on social media. So to watch the evolution of this guy and watch how he's grown and how life has shifted for him, because you can see the shift in his message and his tones and the way he handles and deals with subject matters. It is just extraordinary. So I know that you guys are going to be blessed by Mark tonight. You're going to be inspired by him. And when you get off this podcast, you are going to feel better about your dreams and see more potential in yourself, because that's what Mark does each and every time he put a video out there. So we're going to go ahead and bring him on out because I've talked enough. Mark, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. How about you?
I am great. I'm excited to get into the conversation tonight. Thank you first and foremost for having me here and sharing your platform with me. And yeah, I'm ready to dive in.
Okay, but before we go, because I've talked and I just put it, condensed it a little bit. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Mark. Who are you?
Yeah, I think that's always a difficult conversation, I'll be honest, to answer for anybody, because we're so many things as human beings. It's easy to cling to titles and roles, but who I am in this season, because evolution always hits you. I am a husband, I am a dad, I am a coach, and I'm a person that is just pursuing how to optimize my life spiritually, mentally, professionally, and just live a God ordained life. I know it's not going to be perfect, but I just want to live out destiny until the end, right? I want to live full and die empty. So that's who I am today. Now, tomorrow, you ask me that question, I may have a totally different answer for you because tomorrow is a new day, and I might want to be an astronaut tomorrow. So I leave room for evolution and growth, but that's who I am in this moment.
Okay, so let me ask you that because that's really good. You are in a free state of living. Like you
Hmm.
just said, you may wake up tomorrow and want to pursue something different.
Yeah.
Like, how did you get to that point? Like, have you always been that way, or is that something you've evolved into?
Definitely evolved into that. And it took a lot of soul work and realigning with my core values. I actually remember the exact conversation and the exact phrasing that I had for a season in my life where I wanted to pivot. And it was give yourself permission to evolve. And actually, you was talking about the personal finance book that I wrote. I built a brand around personal finance because that was something that I was extremely passionate about during that time period. And I was planning to be the next Dave Ramsey. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just going to be the black version of Dave Ramsey. I had locked in. This is who I'm going to be, and this is what I'm called to do. And I even had people coming up to me telling me, like, this is your zone, bro. This, so I'm feeling good about my decision to pursue this and go all in. And I don't know, it just came to a point where I said, I want to have a greater conversation, but the brand that I have built is restricting me from having that conversation because I just don't want to talk about money. I want to talk about so many other things outside of money. I want to talk about money too, but I want to talk about other things. I want to talk about mindset, spirituality. And so in that season, I labeled it as this is my permission to evolve. And I used Amazon as my almost like model for living, because Amazon started off just selling books and CDs, right? And then they evolved into the massive organization that we know of now, where they sell literally everything from A to Z, and you can see that in the name A to Z and some of the logos and branding. But they sell everything, and they've evolved into Prime, which was just you receiving your package 2 days sooner. But now Prime offers videos, music, and now I just got a news alert that they are going into Medicare, well, healthcare rather, where you can get your medicine prescribed. My point of it is that they gave themselves permission to evolve. And if a company that big can evolve into something greater, I can too. And so that's how I started on the journey. It was not the end in that one moment, but it did allow me the space to become something greater.
Okay, so let me ask you this here because I know this had to happen because this is just a normal thing that people do. And I think a lot of times it's to protect us, but you
Mhm.
didn't get locked in. And a lot of times people lock us into something, whatever we're doing. Like
Yeah.
how you say you started out as a financial guy. Normally people will lock you in and they hold you to that. Did you
Mhm.
experience that?
Yeah, I experienced it for myself, internal. It was an internal battle. And that, a lot of our battles are internal. They come from conditioning from outside, but then the battle resides on the inside. So you got to fight with yourself to become yourself. And so, yeah, I battled that so much because one, I've invested all this money inside of a logo, a brand, photo shoots, all the stuff social media tells you that you have to be legit, to have a brand. And all the messaging that went into being known as the finance guy, it started to literally hold me hostage from the greater version of myself. And so, like I said, I gave myself permission to evolve, but that war was internal. That war was not necessarily anybody outside of me saying, you can't do this and you got to do this. It was me saying, what will people say if I pivot? What will people think that I'm all over the place? And we use that voice of what people will say as the determining factor of if we will pivot, move, stay. And I just said, hell with it. This is where I'm going. This is what I'm doing. And I'm going to invite you for the ride because I don't know how it's going to turn out, but we're going to see together.
Yeah. Okay. That's really, really good. So
Yeah.
really, really good. So your tagline, I went out and I looked on your social media. Your tagline is, or you asked the question, are you ready to grow past your limits? What do you
Mhm.
think is keeping people in their current state? What do you think keeps them from growing past their limits?
Um, I mean, just that mental limitations, society, rules that really have been passed down, conditioning over in years, decades. People are familiar with AI, and AI is a language model, and we're also, for the most part, familiar with this terminology that AI has to be trained. It has to be given information in order to have an output. So, what these companies do is they have uh, things that they give to AI so that it can scan, it can, just know all of this information. It can just be this fortress of information. But what I think about is that AI is being conditioned with information so that it can give an output. It's the same thing with human brains. We're being conditioned, and we take on, like, you think about a child's mind up until about the age of 7 is very moldable, and they're trying to get cues on how do I live in this real world, and they look to their parents for information, for rules, for structure, for guidance. Then they go out in society, they go to school, and then they get information from their peers, from teachers. Then we have social media and media as a whole. We get information, we get all these cues. And then after we've summed all of that stuff up, we then have a reasoning within ourselves of how we will show up in the world. Well, after you have all this conditioning, all of what your mama did, your daddy did, what we believe in, what we don't believe in, what the church believe in, what religion, what you can and cannot do, we don't do that here. After all of this, what you have is a micro version of who you have the potential to be. Because now your job is to break all of these layers that have been put on you without your consent, all of these mindset paradigms that are no longer serving you, and they probably never served you, but now you're having to do this soul work, and that's what I call it, soul work, of unmasking, of tearing away, of uprooting things that no longer serve you in order for you to break past those limitations. And the limitations are self-imposed, but they came from a source outside of yourself.
And yeah, I mean, you saying some good stuff, and I 100% agree with you. But Mark, like, how do people get over that? Like, how do they reprogram themselves or
Yes.
recondition themselves to get out of? Because, like, if we were raised to think these limited thoughts, it's
Hmm.
hard for us to do, change, to do anything different. And I
Yeah.
love in the book For Agreement, I've talked about it a couple of times
Mm.
on the podcast. One of the things that the author says in that book is morals are our parents and those who bring us up,
Mhm.
their fears and all of their failed experiences that they've had, and they teach it to us, and they teach it
Yeah.
to us as this is the right thing to do, or this. So how do you recondition yourself to go against what you've always known?
Well, first, I'll say for myself, for you, for the listeners, is that you have to prepare for a lifelong journey of becoming, a lifelong journey of healing, a lifelong journey of working on yourself. And a term that phrase it as is soul work. Soul work is that work where you're going to therapy, where you're sitting with yourself, where you're confronting old ways of thinking. But one of the greatest things that I believe helped me, and I know this is not available to every person that may be listening, but if you ever have an opportunity to leave your hometown or to leave environments in which you grew up in, it starts that shift instantly, because now you're going to encounter people who do not think like you and who are going to confront the silly or the outdated ways that you are thinking. When you are in your hometown or you're around people that think like you, church, school, social circles, it's harder for you to break past those limitations. Why? Because you are in what's considered an echo chamber. Everybody is saying and regurgitating and moving and thinking the same way. So there's no moment for you to have a great epiphany of revelation to say, there's another way to think. It wasn't until I left my hometown that I got introduced to different ways of thinking. And every time I would go back home, I would notice that I seemed to be thinking so differently than people back home. It's almost like they were in a time capsule and I was in a spaceship rocket going to the future, because my mind and how I viewed things was so different. So if you could do that, if you could leave your comfort zone, whatever that may be, it may not be for you moving from to a different city, but it could be as simple as, I'm going to get familiar with a new social circle that has the potential to show me different ways of thinking. The second thing is, the best thing that we could do is read different books. I'm going to say something, and I think I have permission to say it here, but if you're very religious, read other books beside the Bible. Read different thoughts. Read books about different philosophies. How do other people think? And what this causes, it causes an unraveling to happen within your soul. And that's uncomfortable for people. That's why we typically run from that work. It's unraveling because it almost starts to destroy the foundation that you built all of these thoughts and this conditioning upon. And so when the foundation starts to get challenged, you start to feel like, okay, what makes sense? What's real? This is the moment that you get to establish new rules and a new paradigm in your life. And so I think those are a combination of things: therapy, being around different people, reading different books, putting yourself in spaces where you know people don't think like you in. And here's the last thing that I'll say: being open to change. People say they want change until change knocks on their door and then they don't want it anymore. Change looks different for every single person. But what I can say about change is, I'm the type of person, I'm very inquisitive. So if you think differently than me, I'm not trying to hit you and trying to get you to believe like I believe. My question to you is, why do you believe like that? What causes you to think like that? Is it a book? Is it an experience? And that in that moment, I'm opening myself up for growth. I'm opening myself up to a new way of thinking.
Yeah. Wow, that is so good. And it is no lie, dude. I found myself here more often here recently telling people your world is small,
Hmm.
based off of what you just said, because I hear
Yeah,
people always talking with limited thinking and they think this is the way the world is. And I just be like, nah, man, your world is small. You
very
need to
small.
get around more people with
Hmm.
different ideas, exactly what you just said, because it
Yeah,
does open you up. But
yeah.
Mark, I just got to go back. You said it. Change is hard.
It is very
Change
hard.
is hard. So, like, I know, like, what other tips do you have for people to change their thinking?
Yeah. Some things that work for me is and something I thought about this morning is a concept called micro shifts. Change is hard, right? But what we typically do, John, is we stack our plate high with all these things that we're about to do. And the perfect time of the year that we typically do it as Americans is the beginning of the year, right? Beginning of the year, we have all these rules that we are now imposing on ourselves. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. And every week, if we're not doing it at the beginning of the year, every week on Mondays, because Monday is that powerful day, we say, starting this Monday, I'm not gonna drink, I'm not gonna smoke, I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go out here and run. And I joke with my community sometimes. We'll see somebody in the morning running outside running. What Black people tend to do. We look at them and we smile. I need to be out there doing that. I know that's right. He out here every morning. We might even roll down the window and talk to him. How you doing, sis? How you doing, bro? You out here every morning, ain't you? I need to be out here too. And we really mean well. We want to change. We do desire to change. We see it. We feel it. We want it so badly. But the issue is that we stack our plate with all these new rules. And the moment that we see all of the things that it takes to actually change, we get discouraged. And so we thrive for a short window of time from inspiration. We're inspired, we're in spirit, and we feel empowered to complete all of these goals until you realize I may have bit off more than I can chew. And so the concept that I introduced to them was something called micro shifts. I was in the Navy, and the ship that I was assigned to was an aircraft carrier. It carries about 5,000 people. Jets land on it. It's a huge ship. It's like a city on water. And I was telling them about the captain of the ship. they of course have a map and they have a route that they must chart. So the captain of the ship cannot just throw that bad boy like he will in a Nissan Altima. There has to be gradual turns that are made, that are calculated, that are strategic. And if you were to look at the ship now and look at it maybe 10 hours later, you will see that that one gradual shift has shifted the course of the ship completely. What am I saying? I'm saying if you really want to see transformation, start small, not big. I know if you start big and you accomplish it, you can get on social media and brag to everybody that you lost 10 pounds in 2 days. But the goal is sustainability, not shock value. The goal is for you to say, you know what? I need to start drinking water. But instead of saying I'm not drinking sodas, teas, nothing for forever, I'm going to give myself one day to only drink water. And I'm going to see how well I do at that. And then I'm going to gamify it and say, all right, if I could go 2 days, I'm gonna challenge myself 2 days. And then I'm gonna get an accountability partner and say, friend, this is what I have going on. Can you call and check in on with me on Mondays or whatever day I choose to see if I drunk my water? Or maybe you join an organization where it's the motto, it's the theme, it's the culture. You do things in a small way and it starts to add up over a period of time. And there's another concept called keystone habits. And what keystone habits are, one major thing shifts in your life and it gives you this cockiness, almost this power that you feel like, if I can drink water one day a week, I think I can manage my money better. And then you start managing your money better. And then you say, if I can manage my money better, I think I can start reading one chapter a week of a good book. And you will look up a year or 2 years later, and the person that you used to be is no longer in existence because of a bunch of micro shifts that have compounded over an extended period of time. And now you're a new version of yourself that you don't even recognize.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So let me ask you this here, Mark. When you started, well, you've always been evolving. That's just who you are. But
Yeah.
let's just go to when you first started this. When were there people around you that looked at you different, that had negative feedback and comments to say? Because I think that's something else a lot of people struggle with is their
Mhm.
circles. And when they
Mhm.
begin to change, their circles tend to discourage them a little bit, because it's
Mhm.
funny, like when you have someone that is heavily overweight, let's say for instance they're
Mhm.
heavily overweight and they start losing weight. I know some people that have lost weight and then their family be like, you may not lose too much weight, you're gonna look
Mhm.
sick.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, and then they
Yeah.
get discouraged in it and they
Mhm.
stop doing it. So did you
Yeah.
experience that type of negativity, I guess?
I think so. Not a lot, but I did experience it. I had a few people say to me, you all over the place, you know. And I don't necessarily think that was bad. And it took me a while to even come to terms with that. But they said you all over the place. I think I was telling them about an idea, some, and I'm excited to share, like, yeah, I gotta get this, I'm doing this and that. And it's like, boy, you all over the place. And I initially was offended, so I had to sit with that and think about it. But I think there are seasons where you may be all over the place with your feelings, your emotions, and you're trying to figure stuff out. So even if somebody does discourage you in a moment, you hear it, you see what they're saying, and then you make another decision about how you're going to move forward, because ultimately I may not be doing this, I'm most likely not even doing this for you, I'm doing this for my overall betterment. And so while we want encouragement from friends, families, we're humans, we want people to pat us on the back and say we're doing a good job. It may not come from the people that you want it to come from, and you got to be okay with that, especially in your transformation journey. The people closest to you may not see the greatness in you. The people closest to you may still be holding on to an outdated version. And I want to share this, just this quick tidbit of that, is that when we're talking about transformation, change, growth, evolution, beautiful, right? But there is mourning that takes place not only from you, but from other people that knew the old version of you. And so we never take that into account, that the friends that you're about to cut off, the places you're about to stop going to, the conversations you're about to stop having, the conferences you're about to start going to, and which interrupts the time that you had with old people. we forget that transformation is not always a seamless process, and there's some grief involved because the people you used to know are fighting to hold on to the version that they're comfortable with as well. And so you're not only warring internally, you're warring against a version that you have been to people for decades, for years. You and your friend were the gossiping friends, and all of a sudden you want to shift and change your life. That's great. But you got to take into account not only is it going to be a battle for you, but it's going to be a battle for her because she's losing a friend. She's losing. So what people tend to do is they want to call you back into the comfortable place and they don't know how to do it. So it may show up as offense. It may show up as you don't need to lose no more weight, girl. It may show up in you think you all that since you've been reading all these little books. And sometimes it's ill intent, but sometimes it's I don't know what to say to bring you back to the place that I'm comfortable with because you're growing so much, right? And I just wanted to throw that in there because that's not a conversation we typically have. We always think, when we get in our evolution state, I'm upgrading this and that, and we just kind of get cocky and we forget about all the other micro shifts that other people are experiencing as well as a result of us upgrading.
And I mean, that was eye-opening for me as well,
Mhm.
because I've never looked at it that way. They do
Yeah.
have to grieve the person that you were. They
Yeah.
have to grieve the person that you were because, like you said, they are accustomed to that version of you,
Mhm.
and yeah, that's really
Yeah.
good, man, because like I said, I've never thought about it from their viewpoint. I always think like, hey, they just need to get with the program. I'm
Yeah,
changing.
that's what we think, right?
Yeah, you should be
You need to
happy
come
for
on.
me. Yeah, wow, wow. Okay, so and I saw your video that you had posted about that, and you was talking about they say you acting funny, and you was
Yeah.
like, and you should tell them thank you
Thank you.
because
Thank you. That's a
thank
compliment.
you.
It
It's a
is.
compliment.
But
It's
I
a
also
compliment.
understand where that statement is coming from. It's coming from that I want my friend back. I want my partner back. I want this version. I want my coworker back. I want that person back. So yes, I'm gonna throw insults at you. Not like I said, some people do mean ill intent, but a lot of times your friends are your friends and they do want the best for you, but they're just grieving. They don't know how to place these new emotions of I'm proud of you, but you're changing, and I'm scared that you're going to leave me behind because I'm not there yet. And what we tend to do is we want to, when we go through our evolution and our aha moment, we want to bring everybody else with us, right? Like friend, come on. And I'm not saying these are bad things, right? These are great things because you just had your epiphany at a conference. You just read one line out of a book. Now you want to change your whole life. But
Not
just
one
as it took
line.
you, what'd you say? Yeah, one
Not
line out
one
of a book.
line.
But think about it. Just as you came to that conclusion at that divine moment, I can't make this moment your moment for your evolution. I can be an example. I can go on my journey, but there's a lot of moving parts that's taking place. You're evolving. You're wanting to upgrade. Your friends are mourning the old version of you. You're mourning the old version of you. You don't know what's next. It's a lot of stuff going on. And what typically happens in that space, because we got so much going on, we just go back to the old version because that's home. That's safety. And so I think change is a combination of all those things. Like, why is it so hard to change? Because you're fighting against the war within. You're fighting against a version of you that has been in power, that has been in dictatorship for decades. And now all of a sudden you're saying there's a new boss in town. Well, that thing is going to fight you. The old version of you is going to fight the new version of you. And it's stronger than the new version of you. The new version of you needs support. It needs books. It needs therapy. It needs a new circle. It needs all of these things to support it until it's strong enough to stand on its own. But if you don't have all of those things, that inspiration is going to die out quicker than some cheap deodorant. It just is what it is. And you're going to go right back to that old version.
So, Mark, let me ask you this here. So, we see people posting memes and captions all the time talking about seasons in which there's a season that people are going to be in your life, and there's a season that you have to cut them out. They always want to bring in the seasons. How do you know when it is time? Like how you just said, someone is grieving the old version of you. And just because they're grieving the old version of you doesn't mean that they're not going to ever get with the new you. But
Yeah.
how do you know when you should be patient with someone or when you should cut them off?
That's a good question. Um, and I don't want to sound too spiritual or spooky, but there's a knowing. There's a knowing that you just know. I don't know if I have the language to articulate it, but they call your gut your second brain, right? You know, when people say I have a gut feeling, they say that because there's a lot of your gut it's just second brain. It's like it knows stuff. You know, it's kind of like it senses things, and I think you know when people are not a fit for your future. And we may fight with it because we don't want to grieve that transition. We may fight with it because we want people to come with us. We want the comfort of familiar faces in our spaces. But I think there's a knowing. There's a knowing that never turns off. That you can fight against it, you can reject it, but you know. And typically, what we see in those situations is that a year or two later, or 3 years later, however long, you'll say, "Oh, what happened to you and so and so? Y'all used to be so close." Yeah, it's I found out this, or this happened, or they was this, they was stealing money, or they was jealous of me. You knew 3 years ago. You wasn't ready to embrace that level of truth, and you fought against it. So I just, like I said, I don't want it to sound so cliche, but you know when it's time to let go, and you also know when it's time to fight for people. You know.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that. So let me ask you this here. So another one of your videos you talked about, and I think this is where it comes into spirituality and religion. Well, not so much religion, but
Mhm.
you were talking about how people will say the enemy is attacking or the devil is
Yeah,
doing this here.
yeah,
And you talked about accountability and
yeah.
how we never take accountability because we blame it on the devil. Like,
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I grew up in that, I grew up in that I guess that space, and it's still very prevalent, and it's not even just prevalent in the African American church. It's just prevalent in church. Like, religion is built around having an enemy. You know, if there is no bad guy, it's kind of like, well, what's the purpose of all this? Because I started noticing that once I started doing a lot of work on me, I started noticing that we people, especially people who subscribe to Christianity and other religions as well, just don't take accountability. It's always the devil is busy. It's always uh the enemy is after you, and the da 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 da. And it's a lot of fear mongering. It's a lot of I'm afraid. It's a lot. And I don't think people step outside of it long enough to get fresh air. You know how if you go into a room and it's funky, and after a certain amount of time you forget that it's funky, it's because your nerve endings stop sending messages to your brain alerting you about the smell. Because at this point your body is adjusting to the atmosphere, right? And
Yeah.
so it's not until somebody new walks in that they remind you that the room is funky, because they like, what is that smell? Oh, that's but you don't even smell it no more. Your nose blind at the point. But when you go outside and re-enter, you get an opportunity to get fresh air. And so I think a lot of people don't go outside of their religious bubble to get the fresh air of outside to say, you know what, that don't make sense. But because you're so conditioned, and every week you're getting fed the enemy, the enemy, the enemy, and that makes you feel good because you have somebody to point the blame to, and you don't have to say, I am the reason that I'm not progressing in life. You get to say, the devil is after me. I'm not going to say people don't experience spiritual warfare. I do believe some people do experience certain things, but I think honestly the warfare is internal. I think the enemy that we point outward is the enemy within. And I think if we would just start doing some soul searching and doing some work, I think that enemy would actually start to lose its power, because the more you talk about it and the more you empower this outside figure, the more you believe that it's having a negative influence on you. And I don't subscribe to that anymore. I have a hard time because even when I hear it now, my ears perk up. The devil knows you. Yeah. Even when you pray, you gotta be quiet because the devil is listening. It's like we empower this devil. We empower, but I thought God was all powerful. I thought, and this is another thing. I know you didn't even ask me about this, but it's like we have this ideology that it's God versus the devil, as if they're equal playing fields. I thought God created the devil. I thought he created good and evil. I don't. So it doesn't make sense anymore of me blaming everything on the devil. I gotta take some accountability. No, the devil is not busy because you are late for work. You didn't wake up on time, moron. You didn't set your alarm, or you did set your alarm. You didn't get out of the bed in time. But now you get in traffic saying the devil is busy. The devil is not busy. People are going to work and you just were late. So take accountability.
Oh my God. But hey, that's what we taught. That's what we
Yeah,
taught. Again, that goes back to the conditioning of the
very.
mind. That
It's a
goes
lot.
back to the conditioning of the mind because we are conditioned in so many ways throughout life that we really don't know. We don't pay attention because become our normal. So we
Mhm.
never challenge it at all. And that's why these type of conversations are super
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. You're afraid to challenge it. Actually, you. A lot of people think a certain way, but they will never say it out loud because they don't want to be the odd man out. They don't want to be what considered the rebel. And we're very social creatures. We're herd human beings. Like we like being in the herd because we find safety in that. It's just a part of our DNA, our makeup. And so when you think differently than the herd, that's not just you having your own opinion. In your brain, psychologically, you see that as I no longer have the safety of my community. And so a lot of people will just go along to get along, not because they always agree and not because it always makes sense. It's just, well, this is what everybody else believe. I'll go with it. But everybody is having that secret internal conversation. And so we're just really just moving in a direction because we think the next person is thinking this is the right way. And we think that person, and everybody's having this secret conversation within themselves, like this don't make sense, but we're all going to do it. And we're going to smile and say, this is the right thing to do.
So how do you become not so much the leader, but the individual? If you
Mm,
because the world really teaches us nowadays, everybody's following a trend. It's
yeah.
almost we wearing the same clothes. You got to do this the same, do this the same, and we're all aiming for the same thing. So how do you become that individual?
Um, that takes a lot of guts. There's a lot of guts, and and I'll say even for a person like me who does this work consistently and talks about it a lot, it takes a lot of work. Like it takes a lot of work to stand up and say, "This is what I believe," and y'all can get with it. Y'all ain't got to get with it, but I do ask for respect. That takes a lot of work and a lot of courage. How do we do that? Like anything, it's a muscle and it has to be developed. You start stepping away. You start standing up for yourself. You start saying, no, actually, this is what I believe. When they have the meetings, no matter what the organization, church, corporate America, friend groups, anybody got any input where you would normally not say anything? You're that person that I just want to get along and please everybody and make everybody happy. You raise your hand for a change and say, you know what, I actually do have some input. I do have some suggestions on how I want to see this organization go. Actually, I think that's a bad idea. Actually, I have a better idea. Actually, just it's the getting into the practice of speaking your mind. I didn't say you got to be rude or you don't have to be nasty. You don't have to be any of those things. You could just firmly say, I don't believe that,
But that's
respectfully.
scary though.
It's
That's
very.
scary though, because once you make that stand, most times you may be on the island all by yourself.
For
And
a
that's
little while.
something that most people do not want to do. So, like, how do you find peace with being by yourself, Mark?
Well, I say it for a little while because this is what I believe. We look for or I say it like this: the rebel of yesterday is the leader of tomorrow. The rebel, the person that stood out, the person, and so rebels. are rebels by themselves only for a short window of time before people start breaking away from that old way of thinking. It's just we're such social beings, all of us, including myself, is that we're just afraid to pull away from that pack. But once that one person pulls away, they're soon going to be met by many more. And the first thing that you typically hear, especially if you're a rebel or just that person that I'm gonna do my own thing, somebody comes up to you with this relief, like, thank you for saying something. Thank you for saying that was a bad idea. Thank you. See them at work. That's the person that, like, you already know in that meeting, if things ain't going straight, yeah. And people not gonna say nothing in the meeting because they want to get along with the overall organization, but they'll come to that person on the side and say, thank you. I was thinking the same thing. So the rebel will be by themselves at first, but soon thereafter, hear me good. They're going to be met with others who think the same way. The rebel is just strong enough and brave enough to have small windows of isolation. And they are also strong enough to say, even if nobody ever joins me on this side, I'm still going to stand flat foot right here and believe what I believe. And but I've never seen it fail where people tag right on along. They tag right on along because they've been waiting for you to emerge. They've been waiting for a new leader. They've been waiting for a new thought leader. And especially if you feel that calling on your life to push outside and do something different, do it, because there are a lot of people waiting on you.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. So, Mark, let's talk about success, because on your
Okay.
platform you talk a lot about success, and I know that, like, you are a business coach,
Mhm.
and you have, like, you do your different seminars. Like, what is your definition of success? And is success something that individuals define themselves, or do you think there's a general definition of it?
Yeah, I think you got to be able to define what success looks like for you. And if you're not capable of doing that, society will always tell you what their definition of success is for you. So one of the most critical things when you start talking about success is defining what it looks like for you, because what success looks like for me may not look that same way for you, John. And I got to be okay with your definition of success for your life, and you have to be okay with my definition. And we have to just, like, let's say it like this. You may hear people tell you what you should be doing. Man, if I was you, man, if I had that, I'd do it. And so you start to get conditioned with other people's definition of success. Man, how much money you make? You make about 100. Man, I got me old big old. Now you all of a sudden like, do I want a bigger house? Because I'm allowing your definition of success to creep in on me. And so what I had to think, and this was a shift that I experienced about 2 years ago, where, at this time, I mean, I think it's 7 figures now, definition of success on social media. You got to be a millionaire, right? But before then, it was 6 figures, right? The golden standard for self-employed Black millennial entrepreneurs at that time period was 6 figures. Everybody, I'm a 6-figure business coach. I'm a 6-figure earner. I'm a multiple 6 figures. So I started to take that in like, oh, that's the standard for success. I'm not successful until I cross that line. And I remember one day I'm in the garage. I don't know what I was doing. It was probably, I think it was in fall or something. I don't know. I think I just tallied what I've made thus far that year. And I was like, wait, I made 6 figures. I did it. And then I kind of paused. I was like, okay, I don't feel any different. Like, I don't know. I think I was thinking like this magical moment was going to happen for me where when I crossed that line, I was just going to be a different person. It was in that moment that I have a conversation with myself. You idiot, and sometimes I talk a little rough to myself. Not the best self-talk, but it's all in humor because I have a humorous mind. You big dummy. I was like, yeah, because you let people define what success looks like for you, Mark. You wasn't privileged to that conversation. And so in that moment, I started asking myself, what is it for you? And so I started creating this guideline of what I thought success looked like for me. I say creating guideline because I do believe it changes over a period of time, right? What you wanted 10 years ago may not be what you want now. The measure may change. And so some of the things that I wanted was my community. I wanted to make a certain amount of money that was defined by me. And then I wanted to be able to go out and speak at events, right? Those things started to come along. I started speaking consistently. Then I went back to the drawing board and said, I want to redefine my version of success. I don't like speaking every other weekend. I want to be home. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, somebody on the outside may look at me speaking every week. Man, you're successful. That's not, after I experienced it, I said, that's not what success looks like for me. Success looks like for me, maybe 1 or 2 engagements per month. And for those other times, I'm at home. Success looks like this time with my family. Success looks like me being able to take a nap in the middle of the day because that's what I want to do. That's my definition of success. So for every person, they have to define what success looks like for them. If they don't, they're going to run into an issue of obtaining and marking off goals that never satisfy their souls, and they're going to feel empty. They're going to feel robbed of that moment because they thought, well, once I got this house of a certain size, or once I got this luxury car, or once I did this, I was supposed to feel something. And when you don't get that feeling, it can lead to depression, or you start questioning your purpose. But it's only when you have carefully defined what success looks like for you that you can actually go on that journey towards success and achieve those things, and they actually be fulfilling for you.
Okay, so you would say number 1, define what success is. And
Yes.
then what would be number 2 on your list?
Being open to changing it. If you get there or you get close to it and you say, you know what, I don't like this, or I thought I wanted this, and not so much. Like, I remember reading this book called Famous for a Few. And when I heard that language, that wording, I was like, oh my God, that's me. Because in the book, he details how you could be very successful with only a few people knowing you. Now, people may look at me and think, well, okay, well, clearly he wants to have a big brand. He wants to be famous. And I used to want that because I thought that was attached to success. But I know now success for me is I want to be able to walk in the airport and nobody stops me and says anything. Maybe 1 or 2 people here and there, but I don't want to have to change my entire life because I'm so known. So success for person A is I want to be an international global superstar. Everybody knows me. Cool. For me is I want to make a certain amount of money, but I still want my privacy and I want to live a pretty normal life because that's what I like and that's what I enjoy. And now I know this is my definition of success because I have friends that are famous or popular. And I was like, don't want it. So defining what it looks like for you, and also being able to go back and renegotiate with yourself and say, do you really want that? Here's the pros and cons. And really get into the nitty gritty. Well, if you do say you want the 8-bedroom house, that's cool. If that's your version of success, but what is it that represents for you? That's another conversation. What does that represent for? Why are you desiring that? Because it's just you right now. You're just a bachelor. You you single. Why an 8-bedroom house? And when you start to do that digging, you will get to a place where you say, well, I just want it because I want people to be proud of me. All right, we got to have another conversation because that once you get that, you're not going to be happy. You're working backwards. So you got to figure out it's not just writing a bunch of things on a paper. It's really getting to the root core of what motivates, inspires you, and what you want your life to look like.
What you want your life to look like. And I think that's the thing that a lot of us never ask ourselves. Like, what do I want my life to look like? We are so busy trying to attain what everyone is telling us our world should look like. Wow. So how do you break free of that, Mark?
Having those breakdowns of getting to a place and realizing that it's not what I wanted, like coming to that conclusion. Also being very observant of people who are in a place that I say I wanted to be, and just kind of looking at their lives and saying, is that what I want? Now I do understand something. There's a thing called duality with everything. With everything good, there's going to be a portion of it that you don't like. For me, the things that I desire, the duality mark for me, even though I know bad is going to be attached to it, there has to be more good than bad. There has to be an unbalanced scale. Because If the bad is more than the good, I don't want that. I understand it comes with it, but I don't want that. And so for me, I have to make sure it's balanced. I have to make sure that whatever I'm setting out to desire or acquire, that it just makes sense for me. And like I said, I'll go back to that same point of being able to consistently reevaluate, because as life change, so does your mark of what success looks like. If you're single, you're going to have a different version of success than the married version of you and the dad version of you or the mom version of you. Or if your parents get sick and need to live with you, there's a success, that marker can change. So it's defining what I want my life to look like, but also giving myself that flexibility that this may change. And so I never want to become cemented in what I think it's supposed to look like. I want to be open. I want to have an idea, but I want to be open at the same time.
Yeah. So, Mark, what is your mission in life? What do you believe is your calling?
To do this work right here, to do this, to have um awakening conversations for people, to articulate the language of the soul, to inspire, to use my life as a um lesson or to pull points from, to become a sage of my time, like a modern day sage, not the kind that's draped in all these fabrics, but just a modern day version of a sage. Like, I love this stuff. I love it. I love talking about it. I love talking about life, exploring. I love all of that. And I truly believe that this is what I was called to do ever since I was a kid, staying at my grandmother's house in Morris, Georgia, of walking in the woods by myself with my dog, going on adventures and having this vivid imagination and seeing people then in my mind's eye of seeing people out in the audience and not knowing what I was going to be saying to them, but I always knew that I was destined to do this work. And so that's my mission, is just to continue, not to be famous or world renowned. I just want to impact a few people that go impact a few people that go impact a few people. And if that is the case, I think I can live full and I can die empty.
I love that. So let me ask you this here. So we won't use the word famous, but you are well known. We will say that a lot of people know you. You know,
I
have
wouldn't say a
experience
lot.
in
A
it.
few people know me.
Yeah, yeah, whatever. Okay.
Just a few people know me.
So, like, is that ever overwhelming for you? Do you ever
Yes.
feel times where you can't? Do you ever feel like you're not you?
It can be overwhelming, but there hasn't been many times that I haven't felt like myself. I was actually just thinking, it's interesting you asked this question. I was thinking about this today on my way home. There was a trending sound that was on social media. I'm sure you heard it too. There's this lady's like, everything is content, everything is content. It was like, this thing where it's just kind of getting people in this mindset that everything is content. Your life is content. If you walk to the store, and we see it, we see influencers, content creation, everything is content, and nothing is left private. And I was thinking about that driving home. I was like, man, bump that. There's parts of my life that's just for me, myself, and I. There's parts of my life that I'm not willing to sell away for a few clicks and comments. And so while people may know me, my mission is no longer to be known just for the sake of being known. I want to be known by the people I'm called to serve. And if that grows, I pray for the capacity to deal with that, because one of my core values is having peace of mind, is having a normal life, of having just regular experiences. I'm a country kid and I'm a old man, old soul at heart, and I just like the simple things in life. So I don't think I will ever get to a place where it will overwhelm me, because if it's overwhelming me, then that means that my time is up from a particular assignment and it's time for me to go in a different direction. Yeah.
So, Mark, we've come to the end of this hour. So, what is something you want to leave people with? Like
I
those
felt like
that
I
are
said so much.
struggling. Yeah. So, what would you like to leave?
Um, what would I like to leave? I want to harp back on to the point of micro shifts. just because that's so fresh in my mind from today. But micro shifts are what's going to change your life for the better over a long period of time. My grandmother said, she used to call us, me and my cousins, the microwave generation, because we grew up with microwaves where you put something in there, 1 minute, 2 minutes, is done. She grew up in the stove generation where you it's going to take a little while for you to cook a meal. um, and so that generation is still here where we want things quickly, instantly. We want the overnight transformation. We want the overnight testimony. We want the overnight miracle. And that's not to say that it could never happen, because there are onesies and twosies, but on average, we all have to bow to the processes of life. And those processes are actually what builds character and makes us the greatest versions of ourselves. And so, if I could leave anything, lean into those micro shifts. Don't try to change your world in one night. It didn't take one night to build it. It didn't take one day to create bad habits and to have this conditioning or to think the way that you think. It didn't take a night. It took years. It took decades. And depending on how old you are, it could have took 50 something years to get you to this place where you have a hard time believing in yourself. And so be gentle with yourself in the process of transformation and changing, and just allow those micro shifts to compound over time. Just like if you're investing in the stock market, it compounds over time. And before you know it, you're going to look up and you're going to be a millionaire, but not in the terms of money. You're going to be a millionaire in your soul.
I love that. I love that. I love that. So, Mark, what's next for you? Like, what do you have coming up? Like, what? And I know you have a monthly call, so let's
Yeah.
talk
Well,
about that.
it's weekly.
Weekly. Okay, so
Yeah, yeah,
how
yeah.
is that open to everybody, or is that just for a select group of people?
Yes, it's open for everybody. I do a call every Monday at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time via Zoom. Don't worry, no face, no case. You don't have to be on camera. But it's very interactive. My full personality shows up. Similar to here, I tell jokes. We we go up, we go down, we in the middle. But it's a beautiful community. I meet with them, like I said, every Monday, and we meet for about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes. But yeah, it's open to everybody. It's on all my socials. Like, you just go to the link in my bio, you sign up, and on Mondays you'll get an email and a text with the access link, and you'll get that until you unsubscribe. But as far as what's next for me, just continuously improving my community, doing some more retreats where I can, be in person with my community and just pour into them at a different level. I do believe that I will always be doing this work. I don't know in what capacity. It may be this for a long time. It may be something else, but the work that I'm doing is work that I will continue to do for the rest of my life. Just maybe a different assignment of it.
I love that. I love that. So, guys, go out. Follow Mark on TikTok and Instagram. Again, that's Mark.Coley, Marc.Coley, Coley. And then he is on YouTube at I am Mark Coley. You can find him there. And then on Facebook, he's Mark Coley. But he definitely puts out a lot of great content on all platforms. I know most people are shifting to TikTok now, but make sure you go and check him out, follow him there, get on his calls if you're looking for something different and something to expound your world and your work thought process. This guy is the guy. And I am super proud of you, Mark, and everything you're
Thank you.
doing, man. And it's beautiful watching you. So,
I appreciate it.
guys, until next Monday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, this has been a wrap. It has been beautiful. Thank all of you for tuning in on tonight. All right, then. Peace.
Bye-bye.